is the skill of taste and design and user experience. It feels like that's a very hard skill to learn. And to me, it tells me design is going to be much more valuable in the future.
Yeah, that's right. And again, here this is a great example. So again, the task level, the task level of like design the perfect icon, right, is going to be like, all right, the AI is going to do that all day long. It's going to give you 1,000 icon designs. It's going to be great. Like it's going to be fantastic. Like whatever, And there will still, by the way, there will still be some level of human icon design or whatever. But like AI is going to get really good at that. But like, what are we trying to do? Like kind of capital D design of like, all right, what is this thing for? And how is this going to function in the world of human beings? And like, what's going to, is this going to make people happy when they use it? Is it's going to make people feel good about themselves? Is it going to fit into the rest of their life? Is it going to, I don't know, challenge them in the right way? All these kinds of higher level questions that the great designers have always thought about, like the job of designer, right, will involve much more of those higher level, more important components. And then again, with AI doing a lot more of the underlying tasks. And so, one way to think about it is, I don't know, you think of like, I don't know, the world's best designers, Johnny Ive or whatever, and you could be like, wow, like if I'm a designer today, if I'm a 25-year-old designer and I aspire to be, Johnny Ive in a decade, it's all of a sudden I have a new path that I can use to kind of get to get there, which is because Johnny Ive did everything he did without AI. Now, a young designer can be like, wow, if I really harness AI in a decade, I'm going to be like the best designer the world's ever seen, because it's not just going to be me. It's going to be me plus being so super empowered by this technology to be able to do so much more. And then so much more of my time and attention is going to be able to be focused on these higher level things that most designers never get to. And I think that's going to be another great example of that.
So maybe what I'm hearing here is kind of this T-shaped strategy of if you want to be successful in any three of these roles, be very, very, very good at that specific role, product management, engineering, design, and then get good enough at these other two roles.
Well, so I think that's great. I think that's really, really relevant. And then, Scott Adams unfortunately just passed away, which is a real tragedy. But I've referred for years to actually Scott Adams. He had this famous kind of career advice he would give people, which I think makes a lot of sense, which dovetails with what you're saying, which is he used to say it's like, look, he said, he said, I could have been a pretty good cartoonist, or I could have been like pretty good at business. But the fact that I was a cartoonist who understood business made me like spectacularly great at making Dilbert. Right? Because even the world's best cartoonists who didn't understand business could have never written Dilbert. And then the world's best business people who didn't know how to do cartoons couldn't have done Dilbert. It took somebody who actually had both of those skills to be able to make Dilbert, right? Which is one of the most successful cartoons in history. Right. And so the way Scott always described it was that from a career development standpoint, the additive effect of being good at two things is like more than double. Right. The additive effect of being good at three things is more than triple. Right. Because you become a super relevant specialist in the combination of the domains. And you see this all. You see this all over. You see this all over the economy. You see this all over the economy. But I'll give you an example. Hollywood. Just Hollywood as an example. There are a lot of writers who can't direct a movie, and they can be very successful writers. There are a lot of directors who can't write a movie, they can be very successful directors. But the superstars in the entertainment industry are the people who can write and direct. Right. And, they don't have a term for those. They call those auteurs. Right. And that's, those are the people who are like the real creative forces that move the field. And so again, and by the way, Hollywood, it's just really funny. It's been spending a lot of time talking to Hollywood people about AI. Hollywood has the same Mexican standoff going right now that we described in tech, except in Hollywood, for example, for filmmaking, it's the director, it's the writer, and the actor. Right. Because the director is now thinking, wow, I don't need the writer anymore because the AI can write the script, and I don't need the actor anymore because I can have AI actors. The writer is saying, wow, I don't need the director because the AI can direct the movie and the AI can do the actors. And the actor is saying, I don't need either one of these guys. I can have the AI direct the thing. I can have the AI write the thing, and I'm just going to show up and do my performance. Right. And so it's the same kind of triangular configuration. And again, what's great about it is they're all correct. Right. Each person in each of those three fields is going to be able to expand laterally and pick up those additional skills. And then as a consequence, you're going to have more people who can write and direct, or write and act, or direct and act, or do all three. And I think, to your point, like your T-shaped thing, like I think that's going to be true basically across the entire economy. And if you think about the T, if you think about the T configuration, it's like, yeah, the breadth, the top of the T is like, how many individual domains are you familiar enough with to be able to use the AI tools to be able to do really good work? And then this part of the T is how deep can you go in at least one of those domains so that you really, really deeply know what you're doing, But like if you're like super deep on coding and you can use AI to do design and you can use AI to do product management, right? That's your T right there. And you're a triple threat at the top of the T, but with this level of technical grounding underneath that. And I mean, at that point, you're the super empowered individual. You're going to be able to just perform like feats of magic. For example, in terms of designing and building new products, the people in my generation couldn't have even dreamed of. And so I think that this is a universal kind of theory that I think can apply across the entire economy.
I'm going to invent a new framework right now. Okay, forget the T framework. I'm picturing an F sideways or an E, where there's two or three, I don't know, downward parts. And so what I'm hearing is get good at least two.
Yeah, I think that's right. The combination. Yeah. My friend Larry Summers had a different version of the Scott Adams thing, which is he used to tell people, he said, the key for career planning is, he said, don't be fungible. Right. And he's an economist, and so that was economics speak. And what that means essentially is don't be replaceable. And so don't be a cog, right? So and what that meant was don't just be one thing, right? So if you're quote unquote, again, just a designer, just a product manager, just a coder, like then in theory you can be swapped in or out. But if you have this E or F, laying on its side kind of thing, and if you have this combination of things that's actually quite rare, then all of a sudden you're not fungible. Not only you're not fungible, like you're actually massively important because you're one of the only people in the world who can actually do that combination of things. And yeah, that your ability to not become one of those people is like just titanically enhanced with AI as compared to anything we've ever seen before.
This is so interesting because I've worked with people that are good at these two skills, and they were always called unicorns at the company. Right. She can code and design. Oh my God. And what I'm hearing here is this is what you need to become. You need to become really good at least two things. I think you used the term smokestack or something, where it's like PM over here, engineer, design. And what I'm hearing here is you need to get good at least two of these skills. The silos of these two roles are disappearing.
That's right. And again, I can't overstress the following for anybody listening to this. The thing about AI that I think people are just like not getting enough benefit out of yet is just it will teach you. Like, this is amazing. Like, there's never been a technology before where you can ask it, like, teach me how to do this thing. And so I always feel like it's like people spend too much. It's one of these things where it's like so much focus on figuring out how to use like a large language model. It's like, okay, what am I going to try to get it to do for me? Right. Which is, of course, very important. But the other side of it is, what can I get it to teach me how to do? Right. And it's just as good at that. Right. And so again, this level of latent superpower. Like, people who really want to like improve themselves and like develop their career should be spending every spare hour, in my view, at this point, talking to an AI, being like, all right, train me up, like super empower me, tell me how to, train me how to be, I'm a coder, train me how to be a product manager. It will happily do that. It knows exactly how to do that. Run me, make me problems, make me assignments, then evaluate my results. Right. And it will do that just as happily as it will do work, quote unquote, for you.
Two tricks I've heard along those lines. One is to watch the output, what the agent is doing and thinking as it's doing the work. So if you're not an engineer, just sit there and watch it think and make decisions. And it's almost become this like layer on top of learning to code, is learning to see what the agent is doing and thinking, because that teaches you about architecture. And the other is a couple podcast guests have mentioned this. When you get stuck and then you figure out how to unstuck yourself, you ask it, what could I have done differently? What could I have said that would have avoided this error in the first place?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, look, on that first one, and this is what I'm doing with my 10-year-old. Yeah, look, if you ask an AI, this is a really good point. So if you ask an AI, write me this code, and then it doesn't, and it comes back and it doesn't work right. Like, if all you know is like single function, I asked it and it gave me back something that's not good, like, well, what do you even do with that, right? Like, you don't understand why it gave you that result. Do you really understand it? Do you even understand what to tell it to try to get it to do something different? But to your point, like, if you actually watch what it's doing, and then you have the grounding, kind of that leg of your E or your F. If you have that grounding, then you can be like, oh, I see what it's doing. I see where it made the mistake. I see where it went sideways. And then you're all of a sudden able to intervene and able to say, no, that's not what I meant. Do this other thing. Right. And so, and again, this is a big part of having the actual kind of, synergistic relationship, is that you understand. And by the way, look, I mean, this is like everything I'm saying is, everything that we're saying right now also is the same as if you're working with human beings, right? Like, if you and I are colleagues and I, would ask you to do something, you come back with something completely different. Like, I do need to understand what was happening in your head, right? In order to be able to give you feedback, right? If I just tell you, oh, that's wrong, it doesn't, like, nothing happens. I need to actually understand. I need to have theory of mind, right? I need to understand what you were thinking in order to really give you the right feedback. And so, and again, the great thing with AI is AI will happily sit there and explain all day long why it's doing what it's doing. It'll happily critique itself. And you can do this. By the way, it's also a very fun thing where you can have one AI critique the other AI, right? Which is another thing, which is like you have one AI write the code, you have another AI debug the code, and so you can actually you can play the AIs off against each other and get them to argue with each other. And yeah, these are all the kinds of skills that are going to become, I think, incredibly valuable.
I think people call those LLM councils.
Yes,
they're talking to each other.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I do feel like if I were like I have no design background. I've always wanted to design. I've always wanted to be a great designer. It feels like that's the hardest one to learn of all these three by just watching and talking, right? Because there's a lot of exposure hours, as folks have used this term. Just like, how do you learn to be a great designer? That feels like that's going to be really hard and valuable.
So my true confession is I've always kind of wanted to be a cartoonist, but I have no like art skills. But as we're talking, I'm like, it might be time.